Is protection for refugees needed now more than ever? In the interview, UNHCR representative for Germany, Michael Lindenbauer.
So this year marks the 60th year since the UN Convention on Refugees was signed. Is it a time to celebrate?
Well, on the one hand, of course, we are very glad that we have an instrument, a legal instrument that provides for the basic rights of refugees, that defines who a refugee is, and that instrument sort of still is one of, or if not the most important instrument in terms of providing refugees the necessary protection. At the same time, when you look at the refugee situation worldwide, I mean, with last year we had 47 million people, refugees, displaced persons around the world. One wonders whether this is the right thing to do, to celebrate. And the situation is getting worse. I mean, this figure of 47 million does not include, for example, the many refugees and displaced persons who are now moving in the thousands in the Horn of Africa, from Somalia to Ethiopia to Kenya. It doesn't include the recent numbers of people coming out of the very difficult situation in North Africa, etc., etc. So the numbers are unfortunately rising. But still, as I say, I mean, fortunately we have an instrument, the Geneva Convention, and fortunately we have an organization like UNHCR, but also many other organizations who are able to provide at least basic support to these refugees and displaced persons.
And you're looking after many millions of these people. Are you getting better at doing it?
I think we're getting better, but I mean, we cannot be satisfied in this situation. Just look at the situation in Ethiopia and Kenya. Look at the situation in Dadaab. I mean, the difficulties that you're seeing there, I mean, the pictures speak for themselves. The difficulties the refugees are in, I mean, we have people dying. I mean, you cannot be satisfied with such a situation, but what we can do is we can promote, we can appeal to governments, including the German government here, to do more to help us doing our job. Because we depend on financial support. We are an agency that is almost 100% financed by voluntary contributions by governments and by the private sector. So it is essential that we get these resources to do our job.
OK, we'll come on to the contribution of the German government in a minute, but just staying with the causes of the refugee problem. They're much deeper, aren't they? It's war, it's poverty, it's food shortages. These are very deep problems. The UNHCR is not in a position to deal with those. Aren't you just managing a problem rather than solving it?
Well, we are, if you allow, I mean, to a certain extent, a fire brigade that kind of comes when the damage has been done. I mean, people have been uprooted, when people have been displaced, have gone across borders or displaced within their own countries because of what you said, human rights violation, because of conflict, because of drought, etc., etc. We can appeal to the governments, also European governments, to do more, to look when they sort of interact with governments in other parts of the world where we have these human rights violations, where we have the conflict, that they kind of get across the message that we cannot continue having human rights violations and endless conflicts and endless displacement as we have at the moment. When you look at the situation of these 50 million refugees worldwide, many of them have been displaced for X number of years. Just look at the Afghanistan situation. Millions of refugees in Pakistan, millions of refugees in Iran, partly second, third generation of displaced persons. We need to do better. We need to get to the roots of the problem. OK, let's come on to the current crisis in the Horn of Africa. We're seeing thousands of Somalis arriving every day in Ethiopian refugee camps, and terrible scenes of children particularly suffering awfully. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees himself says that this is the worst humanitarian disaster this year, but the agency also says that you're struggling to cope. So just give us a sense of how bad things really are there. Things are really bad. As you know, I mean, we have about 400,000 people in this one camp, just as an example, in Kenya, in Dadaab. This camp was originally constructed, if you want, for about 80,000 people. Now we have close to 400,000 people in this situation, in this untenable situation. And thousands of more people are coming. We may very soon reach a number of 500,000 people in a situation which was originally meant to be for 80,000. We need to get better. We need to work, and we are working with the Kenyan government and many other agencies, WFP, international help agencies, to improve the situation. But we are really in a very difficult situation because of the large numbers, because of the quick movements of people coming into Kenya.
Right. Let's look at another problem, the renewed refugee situation as a result of the Arab Spring. We've seen thousands of people pouring out of countries like Libya, but this is Europe's doorstep. So does Europe have the right policy to deal with these people?
Well, I think it's important that we kind of not throw everybody in the same pot. We are particularly concerned by a group of refugees that have been registered before the conflict starts with UNHCR in Libya, about 8,000. About 3,000 asylum seekers. These people, because of the conflict, needed to leave quickly, but these people are stuck. Many of them are stuck at the border between Libya and Tunisia, or at the border between Libya and Egypt. And they can't go back to their countries of origin because they are refugees. They can't get into Tunisia or into Egypt because the authorities say, well, we have enough problems, we can't cope and accept these refugees in addition. For these refugees, we need places, so-called resettlement places. And we appealed to the international community, to the countries in Europe, but also to Germany, to accept some of these refugees. It's a very small, defined group. We are talking about few thousand, about 5,000 people who need places. And then we can address this, and I think that would be an extremely important contribution of Europe and Germany to provide such places.
Right. You're saying Germany needs to do more. That's what Christian Wulff, the German president, has said, particularly in reference to the North African situation. You think he's right? You think that Germany should step up and offer a regular resettlement program?
We would very much welcome if Germany could offer such a program. Germany has done very well. In the past, Germany has provided, for example, 2,500 places for Iraqi refugees who were in Syria and Jordan. We've welcomed that a lot. Germany has done before resettlement procedures, going back to the Vietnamese refugees. What we would like to see is a regular program where Germany regularly provides in a sort of predictable way places for resettlement. That would be a very important step in terms of developing a more comprehensive German asylum system. And we hope, of course, also that some of these refugees who are currently stuck at the borders between Libya and Tunisia will benefit from such a system.
And finally, briefly, if you can, how do you see the work of the UNHCR developing in the immediate future? Is there room for optimism?
Well, I think UNHCR is a strong organization. We have learned a lot over the last 60 years, but I think there's a lot to do. And when you look at the conflicts worldwide, when you look at the situation of refugees, when you look at the ever-increasing number of refugees, UNHCR will continue to have a very hard job to do, and we will continue to be dependent on, as I said, on financial resources that countries like Germany will have to provide to UNHCR to be able to do our job in supporting, helping refugees worldwide.
Michael Lindenbauer, UNHCR representative in Germany, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.